people began turning on them, as they saw them as their illegitimate masters. These rebellions, and the loss of the HPG network, would begin the true start of the Dark Age. And the Marauder 2, in all of this, would play one of the key roles in turning this Dark Age into an even bloodier and more violent era. While the Republic suffered internal strife, rebellion, and growing conflicts on its borders, a proper arms race still hadn't materialized despite this. The Knights of the Inner Sphere, and their associated units, were trying to hold back the tide within the confines of many treaties. It would be the Marauder 2 that would change this. Irion is one of the most important industrial worlds in the Inner Sphere. During the Blakest era, the Free Worlds League had shattered, which Irion and surrounding worlds had been members of. During the Merrick Civil War, a war which would last decades, the Rousset Merricks, a cadet branch of House Merrick, and the masters of these worlds decided that they wanted nothing more to do with the Free Worlds League, or a war of supremacy over its course, and changed their allegiance to the new Republic of the Sphere. This section of Republic space, though it did see some turmoil, did not join in uprisings as with other regions. Though there may have been people who may have felt some compulsion to return to the former Free Worlds League, there were no major players from outside to finance them, and there was no effort on the Rousset Merrick's part, or the elites around them, to undermine the Republic. In fact, they would look to strengthen it, acting as one of their most reliable bastions outside of their core Republic worlds. Irion Technologies would begin the process of building the Marauder 2 on behalf of the Republic in secret in the 3130s, and this would quickly be found out by parties outside of the Republic. The Republic of the Sphere would begin a massive armaments program, and the Marauder 2 was very much the first step in this. 100-ton monsters in the shape of this Marauder began walking off Irion's assembly line for the first time in its history. This, in turn, led to other states beginning to ramp up their own military production. And worse for the Republic, one of the states which gained access to the Marauder 2 design was in fact the Draconis Combine, a less than friendly state on their border. Independence Weaponry, which had before worked on the Marauder 2 producing upgrade kits, was able to within several years begin producing their own domestic designs of the Marauder 2 series. A more friendly state, but an adversary of the Combine, the Federated Suns, would begin producing their own model as well, to reinforce the armed forces of the Federated Sun as the Inner Sphere's industries began to come alive once more, and likely as a response to the Combine at the very least. Throughout the Dark Age all the same, the Republic could only weather the storm from outside for so long. Its allies slowly turned on it. Its more aggressive neighbors outright assaulted it. 1,000 wounds brought the giant low, and it would collapse in 3151. Even prior to this, huge swathes of territory would be lost to various warlords and states around them. Irion would be amongst those abandoned by the doomed state. It seemed likely they would be consumed by the oncoming clans, or by the compelling confederation. However, an ironic, even if undesired outcome had occurred nearby. Embroiled in war from outside and within, the former Free Worlds League would have a political swing towards unification after the destruction of the Merrick-Stuart Commonwealth at the hands of the Lyran Commonwealth and their clan allies. This new state would be backed by the Rousset Merricks as they sought to protect themselves, despite their reluctance to become a part of any league. But all the same, the Free Worlds League was reborn, and Irion and its surrounding worlds under the Duchess of Augustine would join the restored state. But they would not know peace, or have the peace they sought. Because the Republic, even at its core, died. Terra would be conquered by the clans, and the Republic of the Sphere was no more. Now the Free Worlds League is embroiled in a fight with these very conquerors, and Irion produces war machines, including the mighty Marauder 2, to storm their enemies and restore peace to their region, liberating people of the Merrick-Stuart Commonwealth, and perhaps saving the Inner Sphere from clan tyranny. As of right now, only the compelling confederation will stand against these forces, and those who wish to see the Inner Sphere survive should rally to their cause, because the age of the Ilkhan is upon us. There are a multitude of Marauder 2s constructed on Irion, each one shifting and changing certain elements of the design. Despite most of these starting in the hands of the Republic of the Sphere, they have found their way through sale, intercepted shipments, and a host of other means into the wider Inner Sphere and mercenary forces. Some Marauder 2 6 Series mechs even predate modern construction of the most recent variants, having been modified during the Blakest era prior to the destruction of Outreach and Blackwell Industries. The most recent models constructed from this lineup are the MAD 6N and MAD 6C. It is likely that Irion also produces the MAD 6S still, as well as at least parts for the MAD 6M. These range wildly in their configurations, from their engines to their weapon payloads. Because these are also similar in some ways, I will be doing a brief breakdown of each model here. The eldest of the designs still in operation is the dedicated House Merrick design from the Blakest era of combat. This model uses endo steel to save weight, and installs an enormous 400XL engine. It not only runs faster, but it jumps further. Its armor is still 19 tons of standard plating, and it has 18 double heatsinks, letting it cool 36 per turn. It has a Guardian ECM to add further protection. It's armed with 4 X-Pulse lasers, twin large X-Pulse lasers, and twin medium X-Pulse lasers, allowing it to fire with accuracy at long range. It also has a torso-mounted ER-PPC. It does run hot if not managed correctly, and can be destroyed through torso loss, but has no ammunition on board to accelerate this. A variant configured during the early Dark Age, the 6S would be exclusive to the Republic until Irion's defection back to the Free Worlds League. The first inventory of these models appear to have been reconstructed Marauder 2s from other sources, though later they would be produced fully on Irion's production line. The 6S returns to using a light fusion engine and a standard gyro, and moves the more expected 54 kilometers per hour. It has the same armored plating and 17 double heat sinks. It uses a more traditional configuration, mirroring the 4S in many ways, with a pair of ER PPCs, twin medium pulse lasers, and a standard Gauss rifle in lieu of a heavy Gauss rifle. It has an ER small laser installed as well, as a final backup weapon. Using weight saved by not having a heavy Gauss rifle, it also installs an anti-missile system. This model is very similar to the 4S overall, despite drawing down its firepower somewhat. Another model equipped with a light 300 engine and standard internal structure. The 6A has 18 double heat sinks, but runs a compact gyro to make it more durable in its center torso, and less likely to be knocked out by a critical hit. It is armed much more closely to the traditional 5A variant. Twin ERPPCs and twin medium pulse lasers are mounted in the arms, and an Ultra AC-10 autocannon is placed in the right torso as its heavy armor. Perhaps one of the most awesome Marauder 2 series mechs ever designed, in the most literal sense, is the MAD 6C. It uses a standard engine, standard infrastructure, and compact gyro. It has no ammunition on board and is armed with 3 ERPPCs, as well as enough heat sinks to fire all 3 and be nearly zero neutral. It backs these up with twin ER medium lasers. Finally, it has a command console installed as well, making it not just a backline direct fire mech, but a true command event. Independence weaponry would take things to a completely different style and level in comparison to their alien counterparts. And in 3138, 4 years after the MAD 6C and 6A were produced for the Republic, they debuted their brutal killer, the Marauder 2 8K. It runs a standard internal structure and standard gyro. The same weight at 300 XL engine is installed as well. Jump jets are retained. Double pieces on board, letting it go 30. Where can this part take into another level? The Marauder 2 8K has 25.5 giving it 306 points of armor. This means it takes half damage from missiles, autocannons, and gas range, which is shocking for many of these more popular armaments. On top of this, its weapons loadout is changed to a consistent long-range damage plan. It utilizes twin Lord's Light standard PPCs, as well as twin Lord's Light 4 light PPCs. These weapons can fire together and the MAD 8K will remain heat neutral doing so. But if all shots land, they will land for a ruthless 30 damage, spread across 4 locations potentially. More horrifying, it has a Gauss rifle with 2 tons of ammunition packed in itself, which only makes the 8K overheat by 1 point if it's fired in concert with the other systems, pushing up its damage output to a potentially shocking 45. These systems can be reliably fired, and cycle every 3 to 4 turns by firing 1 less light PPC turn on turn. And despite the Gauss rifle being a vulnerability that may knock out its XL engine, it has a case 2 to mitigate this, making it a possibility to prevent the mech from having a catastrophic explosion that will knock out the mech through torso loss. The Draconis Combine's answer to the Republic's Marauder 2 most definitely did open up an arms race indeed. The latest Marauder 2 would come from one of the original manufacturers, Blackwell Industries' former partner and the primary developer around the original Marauder itself, General Motors. It was inevitable, seemingly, given that General Motors also bought out Blackwell when it collapsed, and that the Draconis Combine had begun producing their own model of the legendary battle mech. The arms race could, and would, never just be confined to a handful of states. This is especially true when factoring in that the Draconis Combine is one of the great enemies that the Federated Suns faces. General Motors happens to be centered in, mostly, the Federated Suns. The coalescent of all of these factors was the development and deployment of the Marauder 210D 3141. General Motors made the decision out the gate that they wanted the 10D to be a faster variant of the battle mech, and so they installed an enormous GM 400 XL fusion engine to power this 100-ton gargantuan. This lets it move at a maximum speed of 64 kilometers per hour, and with its jump jets, it can make leaps and bounds of up to 120 meters. To help save further weight, it installs an XL gyro, as well as having an endo-composite internal structure in the frame. It retains its original 19 tons of standard weight as well, which is hard durable for the battle, even in the new era. To keep this mech running cool, it has 20 double heat sinks on board, letting it cool an impressive 40 Where the Davian's Marauder in the Dark Age Children era begins to show its teeth is in its extremely advanced weaponry on board. As its primary arm-mounted weapon, it has a pair of Exostar Pinnacle Planetech extended-range particle projection cannons. Each one of these potentially lands a head-blasting kill shot, and even if not, will melt and blast away armor with no trouble. Backing these up at close range, it has a pair of Exostar medium pulse lasers. To conclude this list of armaments, as its main torso-mounted weapon, it has a Chiscom 87 large re-engineered laser. The re-engineered laser ignores special armor types, and is extremely valuable against more sophisticated battle mechs in this age of warfare. Overall, the 10D is a fantastic evolution of the mech, which is durable in spite of its XL engine, and XL gyro, and can deliver a deadly onslaught, all while the Marauder 2 moves at relatively high speed. The battle mech is so favored, in fact, it appears to have become the primary mount of the current First Prince of the Federated Suns, Julian Davian. This will be his mech of choice in the conflict with the Draconis Combine. On the fallen capital world of New Avalon, it speaks to its quality that it would be considered safe and reliable enough to act in this role. The Marauder is one of the most legendary battle mechs in the setting in the 1980s under FASA, all the way until the clan invasion. The Marauder II's fearsome form would appear in this time, and has been a